Chapter 13, Influence, Power, and Politics, an Organizational Survival Kit. In our opening vignette, we are introduced to Che Agassi as an example of how a person can influence even people of extreme power, and in doing so, become powerful themselves. After reading Chapter 13, you should be able to name soft and hard influence tactics and be familiar with influence and persuasion. You should be able to describe the 5 bases of power and define the term empowerment. Further, you should be able to define organizational politics and explain its triggers, distinguish between favorable and unfavorable impression management tactics, and explain how to manage organizational politics. This chapter deals with organizational politics, power, influence, and persuasion. Individuals attempt to influence policies, decisions, and organizational outcomes. Research has identified 9 generic influence tactics that are used in organizations. This slide enumerates the 9 influence tactics, which include rational persuasion, inspirational appeals, consultation, ingratiation, personal appeals, exchange, coalition tactics, pressure, and legitimate tactics. How can you be more effective in using influence and persuading others? There are 3 factors that you need to consider before you attempt to influence and persuade. First, people tend to like those who like them. Second, there is a universal belief that both good and bad deeds should be repaid in kind. This is called reciprocity. Third, people tend to follow the lead of those who are most similar to themselves. This is called social proof. Continuing from the prior slide, to do a better job of influencing and persuading others to follow your lead, you need to be consistent and understand that people tend to do what they are personally committed to. You should be aware that people tend to defer to and respect experts who are credible or are authorities in their domain. Also, people want things, information, and opportunities that are valued. To the extent that these things are scarce, those who control these resources will exercise power and influence. We now come to the basis of power. Both influence and persuasion are affected by how much power an individual possesses. There are 5 bases of such power. We will address the first 3 on this slide. Reward power is the ability to get people to comply based on promised or actual rewards. Coercive power is the ability to obtain compliance through the use of threats or punishment. Finally, legitimate power is the ability to obtain compliance based on one's formal position in the organization or their recognized authority based on that position. The final 2 bases of power are covered on this slide. Expert power produces compliance based on the information or knowledge that the individual has. Referent power obtains compliance through charisma or some other personal attribute that is attractive to others. There has been considerable research on the 5 bases of power. This research has produced practical lessons for managers and others who are in positions where their ability to influence and persuade others are critical to success. Remember, the use of power is designed to gain compliance. Expert and referent power had a generally positive effect on producing compliance. Reward and legitimate power had a slightly positive effect, but coercive power had a slightly negative effect, meaning that those who used threats or actual punishment were less able to gain compliance from others. Let us consider the following question. As a division head, Natalie is implementing pay for performance plans and positive reinforcement programs at Goodwill Wireless Center. Natalie is attempting to exploit which power? A. Coercive, B. Expert, C. Referent, D. Reward. The correct answer is D. Reward. As this slide shows, as the degree of empowerment increases, the form that power takes evolves from authoritarian power to influence sharing, to power sharing, and finally to power distribution. We now turn our attention to participative management. Participative management is the process through which employees play a direct role in setting goals, making decisions, solving problems, and making changes in the organization. Participative management is more than simply asking employees for their ideas or opinions and can positively impact employee satisfaction, commitment, and performance. See this chapter's Skills and Best Practices section, Participative Management at Linden Lab, for a great example of this practice in action. Let's now consider politics in an organizational setting. All organizations have political elements. Formally defined, organizational politics are intentional acts of influence to enhance the self-interests of individuals or groups. It is important to recognize that politics must play some role in an organization. However, it is prudent to attempt to keep organizational politics within reasonable bounds. Strategies for accomplishing this include screening out overly political individuals at hiring time, creating open-book management systems that shares information with all employees, and ensuring that every employee knows how the business works and has a personal stake and line of sight to the key results, so that each individual has a specific level of personal accountability. Other strategies include the establishment of formal conflict resolution and grievance processes, having strong ethical standards of conduct, and publicly recognizing and rewarding people who get real results without political games. Here we see 3 levels of political action in organizations. These levels are the network level, coalition level, and individual level. At the network level of political action, cooperation in the pursuit of general self-interests characterize the environment. At the coalition level of political action, cooperative pursuit of group interests in specific issues characterizes the environment. At the individual level of political action in organizations, individual pursuit of general self-interests is characteristic of the environment. So far we've discussed politics in an abstract way, but how do people actually exercise political power in organizations? The use of political tactics are designed to exert influence, persuade others, and to enhance power. Several political tactics that have been identified include building a network of useful contacts, using key players to support initiatives, making friends with power brokers, bending rules to fit the situation, and self-promotion. Following from the previous slide, other tactics include the creation of favorable image, praising others to ingratiate yourself to them, attacking or blaming others, and using information as a political tool. Impression management can also serve as a method of exercising power. The political tool of impression management is a process by which people attempt to control or manipulate the reactions of others to images of themselves or their ideas. This includes how one talks, behaves, and looks. Most impression management attempts are directed at making a good impression on relevant others. However, some employees will actually strive to make a poor impression under certain conditions. Why would individuals intentionally look bad at work? There seem to be 4 reasons for this behavior: avoidance, to obtain concrete rewards, to leave the organization, or to gain power. Impression management techniques can be used to enhance one's political position and sphere of influence. Job-focused impression management manipulates information about one's performance in a positive way to enhance one's image. Supervisor-focused impression management is characterized by the individual praising and doing favors for one's supervisor, and self-focused impression management is characterized by the individual presenting him or herself as a polite and nice person. This concludes the lecture on Chapter 13. Apply the concepts that you've learned in the end-of-chapter materials, such as the ethical dilemma, should workers be suspended for lying about smoking? And take a practice quiz on the online Learning Center, www.mhhe.com/KINICKIOB4E.